Hello, welcome everyone. My name is Ioana, and I will be your host for today. Thank you all for joining us for the new era of finance, how AI is rewriting the rules of scale and strategy, a Genpact CFO forum session where we will explore how platforms are evolving to support a new type of AI, how roles are changing, and how CFOs can measure the financial impact. Stay tuned to hear real examples and practical ideas on how AI is shaping the future of finance. With that being said, I would like to welcome today's esteemed panel. Joining us today are Edmond Delassie and Emmanuel Olivier. Edmond is the Senior Vice President, Global Head of Applied Advisory at Genpact. Joining Ed is Emmanuel, Worldwide Chief Operating Officer at Esker. Thank you both for taking the time for this important conversation today. I will turn this over to you.
Well, thank you, Iona, and good morning to everyone. Good afternoon to you, Emmanuel. I think you're in France, right? So I would say how are you doing? But you must be doing pretty well if you're in France, right?
I'm trying to, glad to be with you, Ed.
Fantastic. Well, let's get into it. So as you know, Genpact and Esker have been working together in AI before AI was cool, right? I mean, we started our work together, I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago. We were building out our Cora platform for order orchestration, and we needed an order entry tool, things like PDFing an order in, reading it, entering it in, validating in the ERP. Had a lot of success, right? I mean, we really started in medical device industry, and we were really initially hoping to get like 30% productivity, and ultimately now, a few years away, we've been seeing it closer to 50%. It's not touched less, definitely touched less. And now it's really a core part of our platform. We've got a lot of really successful use cases together. Today, though, we really want to talk a little bit about where we're going, right? AI really is rewriting the rules, literally, in terms of and how process is being done in finance. And Esker is definitely leaning into these new capabilities. So wanted to get your perspective a bit. So first question. All right, it would be just remiss of us if we didn't talk about all of the uncertainty right now. So with all of the change that's going on and the constant disruption to disruption, what role do you see automation platforms playing in helping organizations manage that proactively across the value chain?
Right, that's a really good question. And from our perspective, this is what we tell our clients, and this is also the feedback that we get from them. We have come to realize and to accept, based on these last 5-6 years, that one thing is certain is that the uncertainty level is super high. A ton of things have happened in that relatively short period of time that no one actually saw coming, and we all had to react very quickly to those events. It's the pandemic, it's disruptions in supply chains, it is the tariffs now, it is, I mean, with all the variations of that topic, it's plenty of things that nobody actually saw coming and that you had to react quickly. So I think our perspective is, let's accept that this is the new world. This is the new state of the world economy in the future. And we have to get ready with our various organizations to respond to events that we cannot predict. We don't know what those events are going to be, and we do not know when those events are going to occur. So when you have to face uncertainty, our response to that is the only way to be ready is to be extremely strong on what you can control, what you know, and these are the fundamentals. If we're looking at, Esker specializes in business processes and finance. I mean, automation of business processes and finance, fundamentally. So those are things that you can define, that you can automate, that you can improve in terms of productivity, reliability, availability of information, real-time information being there. And so our recommendation is to approach, again, what you know of your business, make it super efficient, super productive, so that when you have to respond to something that you didn't see coming, you actually can rely on those systems to respond, and to be able to free up the time, free up the resources, whether they are HR resources, IT resources, financial resources that you can dedicate to solving the problems that you're having that you're not ready for, as opposed to using those resources for routine tasks that should have been automated. So that's kind of our high level approach, and it can go in many different directions if you look at how companies operate. But this is the time to actually focus on that, because once again, you don't know when the next crisis is going to hit.
Yeah, completely agree. And we have a very similar point of view around the only certainty is that uncertainty is here to stay, and that what you need to have is you need to have data and tools in place to enable you to make good decisions, right? And I do think automation plays a large role in that, in terms of just taking away the busy work, enabling the data accuracy, so that you can actually make those predictions and those decisions. That totally makes sense. So let's shift gears a little bit into AI. And there's a fascinating question I think to ask you on this. So what are you seeing right now in the market in terms of companies buying point solutions versus platforms? The evolution of AI over the last year and a half or so. What's driving their choices? What are you seeing?
What we're seeing is, and this has happened a lot of times in the IT industry. There's a lot of hype around AI, and from our perspective, we've been around quite some time now. We've seen a lot of those situations, and we've always approached those situations the same way. The hype is the hype. We get excited about stuff, but then we have to rationalize things. And okay, all of these things are tools, and so they have to be used with that in mind. A tool is something that allows you to solve a problem. And unless you define the problem, unless you define how you want to solve the problem, and the technologies that are available to you to solve the problem, and how to roll them out with all those problems that you could have around change management and those kinds of things, unless you do it properly from a project management standpoint, regardless of the power of the technology, you're not going to achieve the goals that you were hoping to achieve. So I think the first thing that I want to say is we have to get real about AI, Gen AI, agentic AI. All of these things are extremely powerful, and they could be game changer. But as they are tools, they're only good if you use them the right way. So get back to the fundamentals. Define your project, know what you want to do, and manage it as what it is, a project. But then do not have 1,000 of those different things going on in your organization, because what matters is how those things are actually orchestrated and how they make sense together. The customer experience that you're going to give to your customers, for example, as an organization, is going to be the end result of that chain of processes, that chain of events that are going to actually happen behind the scenes, and are going to create that result that your customer is going to see. So what I mean by that is they have to work together to that goal, which is, in this case, customer satisfaction. And so we see a lot of companies, because they feel the need to run especially Gen AI and agentic AI projects, because they don't want to appear as being behind from a technology standpoint, and running those projects in a way that is not coordinated the right way. Again, they do not achieve the results that they were hoping for, because it doesn't make sense. The data is not shared, so the AI that doesn't have access to the right data is not going to give you the right information. And so coordinating all this, orchestrating all of that technology change that's going to happen throughout the organization, for us, is key. And this is something that we haven't seen enough of, and that we need to point out more for our customers at the moment.
Yeah, completely agree. We have a pretty strong point of view at Genpact that, there is no such thing as agentic optimization without process standardization first, right? You've actually got to identify what that end outcome is. And I've definitely seen this shift, right? I mean, I think, you go back 6-12 months, lots of point solutions that, maybe put in place an interesting capability that kind of helped you in a kind of a thin slice of the organization. But Did you get any real value out of that? Maybe, maybe not. But we're definitely seeing that pivot toward a platform view and making sure you understand the end to end and really identify what you're trying to get out of it and how the capability really can be delivered in a different way. So,
And the
so
more
definitely seeing the same.
the technology is, the more important it is that you have this sort of governance of your investment within your IT infrastructure, because that's not new. Clearly that idea that, oh, I have a problem, here's a point solution for the problem, and I'm basically having 100 of these things and I'm patching my business here and there, and I come to a point where I have so many of these tools that I'm running within my IT environment that are each of one independently useful, but together form a situation where the level of complexity becomes unmanageable, the access to data is a problem, and even the risks that are created start to be pretty significant, especially if you're talking about cybersecurity. I mean, if you have like 100 different tools that have access to your ERP, and essentially each of them is opening your ERP on the internet, well, that's a real security threat. So you have to step back and think strategically, what do I want to do? And this is where you need to think platform as opposed to point solutions. You need to think more strategically rather than opportunistically.
Yeah, completely. I mean, a lot of the waste that we see, our Six Sigma background's all about finding waste. It's not necessarily in the steps within the defined process. It's in all the things people do around it. Like you said, the swivel chairing, the popping out to a portal, all those things, trying to bring that all together. So,
yeah, absolutely.
All right. So next one. So the industry, I will say, has been talking about elevating the role of the CFO from transactional oversight to strategic leadership for decades. Frankly, most CFOs I know are kind of already pretty strategic. How do you see AI and agentic AI really helping that shift?
I think our view of this is, you're completely right. I mean, I've been a CFO earlier in my career, and even when I go back to when I was in college, I can still hear some of the classes that I went to saying, oh, if you're in finance, you have to quit being in the mentality of producing financial information and move more into a mindset of what do I do with it, essentially. So not new. Technology over the years have allowed this to happen, but we're not there yet. That's a journey. This will never end, basically, because at the end of the day, finance is about using information to make decisions. What AI is doing is it's essentially that's enabling the finance professionals to have more information more quickly, that they can use to make quicker decisions that are more informed based on the information that they actually have access to. And so it's making those things a reality in a way that's never been seen before. And that's not replacing the job of finance professionals. That's essentially making them just better, in a better position to make those decisions based on better data. But it's super important, in our opinion, that we do not forget that at the end of the day, this is that decision that you want to arrive at that actually matters, and technology is just a help to get the information you need to make that decision. The way we see it is, and it might be controversial, but AI is based on data, and data is the past. It's showing you a picture about the past, and understanding the past, the full, vision of the past, is extremely important to make a better decision. But you have to realize that it's only the past, and so if you want to differentiate yourself either as an individual or as a business against your competition on the market, you can't just replicate what's been done in the past forever, because everybody else is going to be doing that. And so if you completely rely on AI to make decisions, this is what you're going to be doing, because it's going to be using information from the past, using decisions made based on that information in the past, and everyone's going to be doing the same thing. You have to think in the way of I am now augmented finance. I have this superpower that gives me all that information. But the real value add, and this is a human thing, is what do I make of this with an idea of moving forward as opposed to looking back with what happened in the past. I think that's that level of information, that power that we now have in finance, thanks to technology, that is the game changer.
So that leads to an obvious next question. So then what are you and Esker doing to evolve your platform to really incorporate agentic AI? Are you changing the UI? Like how is that working?
Well, one of the fascinating aspects of AI actually is how it's changing the interaction between humans and systems. So it's a new UI at the end of the day. That is a revolution. We all know, I mean, I've been in the software industry for 30 years. We create super sophisticated features in our product that are hardly used in the real world. I mean, they're super cool when you do a demo, but in terms of, is it really used by people every day? Not so much. There could be about 1/3 of the code that's been written that's actually not used because the real world does not accept it. People, at the end of the day, the value of software is given by whether or not people are using it. People reject it. I mean, I have a simple example. As part of what Esker does, we automate the accounts payable function within organizations, and we did a survey a few years back trying to understand what people were doing in AP departments, and we found that about 30% of their time was being spent on responding to supplier calls or emails about their invoices. Okay, where's my invoice? What's happening to it? When am I going to get paid? That sort of thing. And we said, you know what? If you automate the process with us, you have real-time visibility on the process. You know immediately where the invoice is, where it actually sits within the workflow process. If there's a problem, you can say what the problem is immediately. And better, you can make that information available through a portal for the supplier to actually go to that portal on their own and find out what's happening to their invoices by themselves. So they're not even, bothering you with this. And so you save 30% of your time in your AP department. Fantastic productivity improvement. The reality, people don't go to portals because they forget that they even exist. They lost the login information. They don't have the password. They don't like it. It's cumbersome. They would like to ask the question in natural language and get a response in natural language. Plus, when they go to the portal, maybe the information is coded in a way that they don't understand. They call you anyway. What AI allows you to do now is basically, instead of forcing your suppliers to go to that portal to save you time, let them, write an email, let an agent receive the email, understand the email, get access to that same information that you have in the portal, except present that information into like English, plain English, that you can send back to that supplier, that they have the information that they need in a way that they understand without having to worry about systems. I send an email, I receive an answer in my email, fine. And so this is the change of interaction between systems and humans that I'm talking about. That applies to this particular case around AP. So that was an example of how we use AI in our platform. We have about 70 different ways, like this one I just described, to use AI in our platform. But every time we know why we're doing it, what the problem is, what we're trying to fix, and why AI is the answer to that problem, because it could be something else. It doesn't have to be AI. AI is not the answer to everything. It's not the magic wand that sometimes people think it is. It's a means to an end. If you cannot define what you're trying to achieve, you're not going to be able to find the right tool to achieve that goal. So that's fundamentally how we see it.
And look, I love that. I really like that example because there's so much agentic whitewashing right now. Like everything, people are just renaming things agentic, right? But like the example you gave of going from here's a portal that somebody has to remember the login for to a simple prompt that now someone can ask, hey, what's the status of my invoice? That's a very different world, right? And I think that's a great example of kind of the shift, and I think what it's really going to take to get some of the value out of it. So excited to see more in terms of what you build out. So, with that though, right? Probably the biggest change is going to be roles and responsibilities, within an organization. And this is one where we have lots of conversations with clients around this. And I think you and I were at the same conference, I think about a month ago, and I was at a roundtable there talking to CFOs about this whole topic of what happens to roles and responsibilities as these AI solutions come into place. So what are you seeing in finance and customer service organizations as customers put in place your platform? What changes are happening in their organizations?
Well, I think, when they're using our platform, they have control of what they're doing. I think the problem that often organizations have is, when tons of AI related projects are being kicked off left and right, and consuming resources, human resources, money, etc., but not generating the results that people expect. Again, back to the governance. You need to define what you're trying to do, and you need to fundamentally control what's happening within your organization. AI is easy. Technically, it's easy. Everyone can use ChatGPT and do something with it. But the perception that is created by the what everybody can use in their private lives, if you turn that into an organization like a business that is trying to create value for their customers, I think that's completely different, because you don't want 10 different projects giving your customer, in this case, an impression of a disorganized organization that doesn't know what it's doing, potentially giving conflicting information and a customer perception that's not what you want to show to the public world. So I think the conversations that we have, especially with CFOs are minded in a way that they want things organized. And so it's not because it's a cool technology that it doesn't need to be organized. Because once again, what matters is what it creates, the end result, as opposed to engineers having fun. That's a different thing. And that's a challenge, because as this technology is available to everyone can have great ideas about how to use it, but what does that look like from the outside, or to the even the internal customer you're trying to serve? That's what matters. And this is the control, what I call the governance around those projects, that's even more important now that technology appears to be so readily available to everybody.
Yeah, it's interesting. What I always think about when you put in transformations of any kind, you've always got to think on the impact on people, right?
Yep.
And the one you mentioned there, it's a great one. I haven't really thought about it too much. I probably should have. Is this concept of experience, right? People expect to have that ChatGPT-like experience in their work life that they have in their natural life. So how are you enabling that? And then two, at least what we're seeing in our organization is we're training up 70,000 of our people on AI. Look, the roles are really changing, right? There's a big difference between somebody that's entering transactional data and someone who's training an agent, right? And how do you really think very deeply and thoughtfully about the changes in your organization, the training you need to put in place to be able to get people from A to B? That's definitely something I know is on the minds of pretty much every CFO that I've spoken to recently. So
yeah, I mean, there is a challenge. I mean, there like any new technology, things are going to change. Some roles are going to partially disappear. Some new roles are going to emerge. Clearly, producing information, providing access to data, that's going to be done probably by the agent. Making sense of the data, making sure that the data that is being provided actually is going to be useful relative to what it is we're trying to achieve. That's a higher level role that may or may not exist within organizations. And some people are going to be able to transition to those roles, maybe more elevated roles. Some may not. And so clearly, from an HR perspective, people are worried about that because, at the end of the day, maybe, the impact on the headcount is not going to be that great, but from an individual standpoint, you may have some problems with some roles and some members of the various teams. So I see that as a concern within an organization because obviously you need to manage it. And also there's a transition phase. You don't want to be doing some of the things that, I've seen that Scandinavian company firing 700 people in customer service just because an agent could do it and finding themselves having to rehire those same people 2 months later because at the end of the day, just the result, like what I was saying, from the customer perspective, that was like what a mess fundamentally. And so you don't want to do that. You want to manage that transition. You want to coach those people into those new roles. And that's extremely critical to the success of those projects.
Yeah. And look, I'll tell you, it is interesting. And that is a funny example you use. I'll tell you though, what we're finding and what we're hearing from clients is that, there's a real belief that this is a different level of disruption that's going to come with agentic AI, right? This is going to be a significant impact, and your point around the data, right? We're going to have to have a lot more people really focused on really the stewardship and the ownership and the cleansing of the data, because as you said before, nothing matters if that isn't right. But I do think this is a big change and a big lift. So something for all of us to really spend time on.
It's a fantastic opportunity when you have something that's happening in your world that is going to be that drastic in the way it's going to change things. That automatically means it's a huge opportunity for everyone to take that wave, to surf that wave better than the competition, and essentially build competitive advantage around that. And so that's clearly what we're saying to our clients. Don't use it to your disadvantage, but that could make you number one in the world in your market if you do it right.
100%. Enable the focus on the core for sure. Yeah, love it. Good. Well, I know I've been interrogating you. Any other questions for me before we wrap?
No, I think that's clear. I think we share the same views. That's good. Happy to be partners, I think. So great things ahead of us.
Yeah, I look forward to doing lots of great stuff together. So thanks again, Emmanuel, and Iona, back to you.
Thanks, Ed.
Fantastic. Well, this concludes today's conversation. Thank you to both of you, Edmund and Emmanuel, for sharing your insights on how AI is shaping the future of finance. There is obviously so much more innovative collaboration to come from the Genpact and Esker partnership. Thank you for driving this powerful conversation, and we'll look forward to hearing more in the future. And also, thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. We hope you have a great rest of your day.